On today's episode of the Locked On Texan podcast, the Texans make a move. A 2026 7th-round pick for Christian Kirk, boosting their wide receiver room. We dive into that and more on today's show.
And if you don't like Christian Kirk, I'm on your bumper.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Battle Red Nation. We are your Texans insiders and credentialed media members. I'm John Hickman. That's Brian Newhat, Big Sarge Barfield. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And we are diving into the Houston Texans making a trade for Christian Kirk. Not the game-breaking trade that we're all looking for, DK Metcalf or maybe signing Devontae Adams, but it matters. The job is not done, so we'll dive into that to close off. Tony Wiggins, Locked On Jags, join the show to let us know who is Kirk and what happened. So you guys stick around for that. But we open up today's show looking at the Texans trading for Christian Kirk. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet win. Big Sarge.
John Hickman, greetings and salutations, brother. And, thank you for acknowledging my new hat. This hat just dropped in the team store. So, yeah, man, I had to get it. It would not have been me if I wouldn't have been able to get this hat.
Also, it wouldn't have been you if you wouldn't have just slightly flexed a little bit like you do. People got to know you to pick up on it. But for the Houston Texans, a 2026 7th-round pick got them Christian Kirk. Right now, they are expected to take on the remainder salary cap for his contract. I am sure within coming days we'll get a news that they have worked something out to lower that salary cap number to give them flexibility. But Christian Kirk was a guy that you and I talked about a little bit online, more so offline. We liked him and linking him to Houston, thought he was going to be released. Nick Caserio just said, hey, listen, a 2026 7th-round pick, I ain't got to go through waiting to see what teams is going to sign him. I can get my guy right now. He raises the floor if he's healthy for the Houston Texans wide receiver unit. The thought process is still, hey, go get you a guy in the draft. But this is a deal I think makes sense for the Houston Texans, and it really does make sense for CJ Stroud.
John, before I give my take on, how I feel about the Houston Texans trading for Christian Kirk, I had a question to ask you really real quickly. With a guy like Christian Kirk and the way that he's able to operate from that slot position, the way he's able to get in and out of places and able to be very effective when he's in there, how much does that open it up for the tight end group as well? Him being another safety net for CJ Stroud.
I think it'll be, wonders for that tight end group, especially looking at how I anticipate Nick Caley, Jake Moreland working together, Jerry Sapinski, who was a part of this coaching staff. He's coached tight ends before. How they anticipate their tight ends to play, what they're looking forward to. I think for one, if he's healthy, it takes stress off of that tight end unit to be like an end-all, be-all for that offense, and it can allow them to maybe be more goal specific. Like we have a goal to be one of the better blocking units in the NFL. Let's start coaching on that right now. We have a goal to be one of the better units that our quarterback can trust us underneath to move the chains if the run game isn't there. So let's start working on that right now. Christian Kirk is a guy that for this stage in his career, I think he's a perfect number 3, which is great. He'll be a perfect slot guy. His best year in the NFL, 1,100 yards for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Charles, I know you're going to get into this. Nearly 500 snaps in the slot. So he's going to do some good things for both Nico Collins, whoever else they add in that tight end unit.
John, so I do like Christian Kirk, and I do like what he brings. My issue is, are we getting the, when I say are we, and I'm talking about are the Houston Texans getting 2022 Christian Kirk, who had 1,108 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns, or they're going to get Christian Kirk, who's only played in a total of 20 games in the last 2 seasons, and that's 2023 and 2024? Are you getting a Christian Kirk from 2022 who in 15 yards and under was targeted 17 times, had 9 catches, was very effective, under 15 yards? And we know that one of the biggest problems the Houston Texans offense had last year was on third down. And this is 15 yards and under on third down. But we know that one of the biggest problems the Houston Texans offense had last season was third and long, and they were in third and long a lot. And so here's a guy that you can bring in who is like very effective against man, very effective against zone. He is a slot receiver who knows how to play the slot receiver position. And so when you look at that, are you getting that 2022 Christian Kirk who on third down was targeted 17 times and had 9 catches, 15 yards and under to be able to help that Houston Texans offense once they get in third and long? My biggest issue, though, John, is in 2021, he had 6 drops. Yeah. In 2022, he had 7 drops. And so it's great to be, an effective slot receiver. So it's great to be able to find the zones and find in the zone, or find, the spots where CJ can be comfortable to dump the ball down to you and keep the chains moving. Problem is, are you going to catch the ball? And the reason why I asked you about that tight end group and about him being a safety net for CJ is we saw that last season when sometimes in crucial times we seen Dalton Schultz drop the ball. And, while him dropping the ball, they're not able to move the chain. So you don't want to have 2 players out there that you can't trust. Like it took a while for CJ to go back to Dalton Schultz. It took a while for Dalton Schultz to regain some of CJ's trust as far as being able to throw the ball, because he was just too ineffective on some of those plays. And so a fully healthy Christian Kirk can be 1,100 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns, but he could also be 13 drops in 2 seasons.
And that's not ideal.
Yeah, and so and are we getting? You're getting another wide receiver, and like I said, I like what they did, but you're getting another wide receiver coming off of injury, and so there's some skepticism for me, John.
Yeah, and I think that's why we're all anticipating the news breaking of hey, they didn't work something out with that contract to where the Houston Texans are not taking on the full load of that 2025 contract last year, that salary, right?
But I do like him. I do. If you can keep him healthy, John, he is a very, very good wide receiver.
No, absolutely. And I think for me, what I want to really more, focus on is what will Christian Kirk bring when he's healthy? Let me not say if, when he's healthy. Well, we know that, again, no Tank Dell for 2025. And I think people have to really understand that right now it's only Nico Collins.
Yeah.
In the last 2 seasons since CJ Stroud has arrived, it's only been Nico Collins and Tank Dell. And Tank Dell has been hurt the last 2 seasons. And they bring over Stephon Diggs. And by the way, I think signing Christian Kirk closes the door on a reunion between the Houston Texans and Stephon Diggs. They may view him like, hey, both of you guys up in age, but what one player is asking for, we can't afford that because we have other holes and needs, and they may still go out there and make a splash and bring in a bigger name wide receiver. Christian Kirk, you can do some of those things, not to the extent of Stephon Diggs when he's healthy, but you'll give us an opportunity to maybe do some things underneath that we absolutely need, and we'll still save money. So I don't think we'll see a reunion with the Houston Texans and Stephon Diggs.
And one thing that I do – go ahead, John.
No, I like the fact that Christian Kirk is a guy that came to Jacksonville and really helped out Sunshine.
Yeah,
Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that he's a guy that for a young quarterback, hey, man, how can I win right here? What can I do against cover 2, and you can maybe win a matchup, and we can keep the chains moving. When he's healthy, when he gets healthy, he will drop passes. Don't expect for him to be outside. I don't think that he should be playing outside a lot, maybe depending on the matchup. But he is a guy, when he does get the ball in his hands, good route runner, knows how to create separation, one of the best to do it at that position inside, he'll be able to help this offense move the chains.
John, this is by far the best quarterback he's ever played with in his career. And I like Kyler Murray. I like Trevor Lawrence. I like both of those quarterbacks. I especially, Kyler Murray, who has overachieved. Most people didn't even give him an opportunity or a chance to be as good as he is. And, consistency is his issue. Same way with Trevor Lawrence. Consistency is his issue. But you got a quarterback in C.J. Stroud who's coming off what some would consider a down year, his second year going into his third year. And I think that this is the year you'll see that rookie year be that rookie year enhanced. I think that he's coming off of something that he had to learn about playing that position, something about being the franchise quarterback. And I think that he's fully embraced it. Nick and D'Amico went out and got him a brand new offensive coordinator, someone that's probably going to listen to him, somebody that he has some respect for, especially coming from the Sean McVay tree, a head coach who he has high. He's very, very high on Sean McVay. And so this is going to be an opportunity for Christian, not only for the Houston Texans to get better, but for Christian Kirk to prove who he is and playing with a quarterback like C.J. Stroud. And I'm going to be honest with you, John. Whoever they go out and they get that number 2, if it is Devontae Adams, if it is DK Metcalf, I'm still motioning Christian Kirk over to Nico's side a lot because I'm going to force you to decide, you're going to let me eat you up in these 5 to 7 yard routes, or you're going to let me go deep with Nico, or I'm going to put Christian on one, make Christian come one side, and over the top, here's Nico, who definitely loves to run those type of routes.
Financially, they have to work some things out, but they do not lose assets this year.
I think that's that Minnesota pick that they gave up.
It works out for Houston is next year. Then hopefully by next year, you're not banking on a 7th round pick to come save the franchise. When we come back, we got my man OG Anthony Wiggins, Tony Wigg from Locked On Jags. And then we'll close out with the job's not done. Good move. It's more to come. First, Texan fans, it is time to stay in on the action as we get prepared. The playoffs will be creeping up on us soon for the NBA, and they got everything you need coming down to the wire. Who's going to make the top 2, top 3, top 4 seeds in the West? Will the Rockets fall out? Right now, it looks like the LA Lakers are the favorite to maybe win it all outside of OKC. Whatever you want to do with your extra funds, make sure you save a little bit for FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you missed the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Also, guys, FanDuel is easy to use, easy to navigate, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. The OG Anthony Wiggins, Locked On Jags, is joining the show because we got to talk. We got to talk. Christian Kirk traded for a 2026 7th round pick to the Houston Texans in division trade. You don't necessarily see those often. Just give our insider some inside information on who is Christian Kirk, some of the things that he does well, and I mean, really, what happened?
Classy guy. The first year was well worth the money. Got over 1,000 yards here with the Jaguars after signing a 4-year, $72 million contract. Last 2 years he was hurt, and even when he was healthy, the Jaguars lost a lot of close games, and Christian had some drops. And he was never really the person that people thought was the reason. So I don't want to give y'all the impression that, okay, those drops led to those losses. But when you lose close games, those drops on third down that could have sustained a drive, that does hurt. And he was one of the people making those types of mistakes. So really good player, not the biggest guy in the world, doesn't have a real huge catch radius, When he gets the ball in his hand, he has the ability to turn into a little bit of a punt returner. As anyone who saw him in College Station knows that. I wouldn't say he's a burner. Like, he's not like Dell, the receiver that you have, but he can run and he can move. I think he's going to really, really be good with you guys because of the presence of Nico Collins. Here, he was the number one receiver for the first 2 years. And then Brian Thomas Jr. took over. But by the time the Jaguars realized they needed to be running everything through BTJ, Christian was already hurt. So I this didn't catch me by surprise. That's a high cap figure for a dude that at best is going to be your third option in the receiving core.
I'm glad you said that. I mean, the Houston Texans fans shouldn't expect for Kirk to come in and be a savior for the wide receiver unit. It's weak down here in Houston. At most, he should be a wide receiver 3 for Houston. Is that right?
Yeah, I think he's better in the slot. He played a little bit outside here, but he wasn't very good at it. He wasn't terrible at it. But we're to the point now, man, where people are trying to find solutions to their team. They're not trying to solve problems. They're looking for solutions. People want to know, how can we get to a championship level? This is a new staff here, right? And Coach Whipple coached him, who's the wide receivers coach. He coached him now, or he's not the wide receivers coach. He's an offensive assistant. He coached him in Arizona, and there was a connection that was made when Liam Cohen took over. He told him, "Hey, man, I know you, man. You coach with Coach Whipple, and Coach Whipple and Liam Cohen go back a long, long ways." The thing is though, man, is when a new team comes in, they are not beholden to keep guys that right. the prior regime had on the team. So if Chris Godwin is going to hit the market, and Liam Cohen coached Chris Godwin last year, you look at him and he's 6'2", 215 pounds and a better player, or Cooper Kupp is going to be able to stand in the slot and understand the offense and teach the other guys the offense, you're now not going to have a $16 million per year player as your third option in the slot. They use a lot of 2 running back systems, and not running back, fullback. They use 2 halfbacks a lot in their offense. They use a lot of 2 tight ends. Not saying that they won't ever use the slot, but $16 million for a guy like that, it just did not make sense for the Jacksonville Jaguars any longer.
And the expectation right now for the Houston Texans is definitely waiting on the news on, hey, when y'all gonna drop something with that contract. I know they took it on, but I'm sure Houston will work it out to where they may be giving him an extension and lower that 2025 cap number. But what can he do for a young quarterback? C.J. Stroud is going into year 3. And this team desperately needed an overhaul at their wide receiver position outside of Nico Collins. No Tank Dell this year. No Stephon Diggs. Kirk, at the least, has helped young quarterbacks kind of find their way in the league. Mm-hmm. What makes him good at that?
Well, what Kirk can do now is, like I said, he's 4.4, 5-ish fast, not 4.3 fast, right? And that's plenty quick enough, and he's gotten a little bit older. He's 29 years old. He can get deep on you in a sneaky way. Now, if that ball hits him right in the hands, he's going to catch it. If he has to stretch out for it, doesn't have big hands, doesn't have long arms, that's going to be a little bit of a problem sometimes. And you just hope it doesn't come at a time in the game that's really, really unforgiving. That happened here in Jacksonville a little bit. But what he also give a young quarterback is veteran receivers, they know where the holes are. They know how to sit down in zones. They know exactly how to run and get open and provide an angle for the quarterback to get the ball out. And like I said, as a compliment to Nico Collins and whoever else they may go out and try to get, which I think at his number, whoever they get, he might be wide receiver 2 if they keep him at that number. But with Nico Collins, I have to look back at the splits and find out, did he actually have good games against Houston? And that gave them some sort of idea, or even look and see if there's some sort of connection with the coaching staff with him at some point, because sometimes you got to look all the way back to college, right, to find these connections with these coaches. But he's in high enough regard that for a team, I heard Pittsburgh was extremely interested in him as well last year at the trade deadline before he got injured. So he's a good, solid, professional receiver. I would not expect what y'all expected from Stephon Diggs. I just wouldn't expect anything like that. I'm looking at a 45 to 55 catch guy, 700 yards, and can have 1 or 2 of those games where he goes 7 for 105 and with a touchdown. And for you guys to be a playoff team, I think it's a solid addition. It's just not right for the Jaguars at this particular time.
Yeah, you guys are doing an overhaul, but that's something that you said. It don't sound like the reliability is there, at least on a scale of 1 to 10 times out of 10. It sounds like he's not as reliable as you may want him to be. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And the reason why is because, remember, he was wide receiver 1, thought to be wide receiver 2. By the way, the Jaguars are now releasing Evan Ingram as well. We just found that out right before. And it's just situational, like they like their guys to block. I put up a little post where I kind of mimicked the movie Paid in Full with Cameron's character when he says, everybody eats B. And I said, everybody blocks B. And if you can't block for Liam Cohen, you're not going to be here and you're not going to play. So I don't think blocking is either one of those guys' strength, Evan Ingram or Christian Kirk. I do believe Kirk can help you, but you have to understand exactly what he is and don't ask him to do a bunch of things that he doesn't do. And I think that's where Houston is, and it's a better fit for them than it is for Jacksonville.
Man, that was my next question. Like, is he a blocker? Is he good at blocking? At the very least, is he a willing blocker? Because that's something the Houston Texans really pride themselves on, even in the wide receiver unit.
I think he's willing, but
you can be willing all you want. If you ain't good,
yeah,
you ain't good.
Yeah, I'm willing. I'm willing to go bench 300 pounds, but I ain't done that. I never did it. In fact, I maxed out at somewhere like 275 or something like that in high school. But you can be willing to do it all you want to. But there's another in football. There's another guy that's a gladiator on the other side, and his job is to not let you block him. And Christian Kirk is about 5'10", about 190 pounds. If you want to get off that block, you're going to be able to get off that block. But I look at it as if he's on a team that is winning, then
he's a good piece.
Those 50 catches will help you. If you're on a team that is trying to get over the hump, you don't need Christian Kirk to be your second best wide receiver on your team. That's just not going to work out.
My man Wig, Locked On Jags. Make sure y'all listen to him. Last question for you, Wig, and this is very important, extremely important. Are you guys ready to go 0-2 against the Houston Texans this season?
Yeah, well, that's what your mouth say, but we'll see what happens once we get started.
All right.
Rough year for us last year. I got to eat crow. I actually didn't come on here for this abuse.
You know it. I don't know why you expected anything differently.
I didn't come on here to get this abuse from y'all people. In fact, I'm gonna find out where you live. I got 2 daughters that live in Houston, and I'm gonna find out where you live. And you get your kneecaps kicked, don't worry. You gonna know where it came from, right? They're gonna say that's from my papa. Hey, how about that?
That's cool with me, man. Then after that, I'm gonna say, well, y'all family anyways, man.
All
Thank
right.
you for stopping by, Wig.
Yeah, man, no doubt. Tell Sarge I said what's up.
Will do.
All right.
Welcome back in, Locked On Texan listeners and viewers. That was my man Tony Wiggins talking about Christian Kirk, who he is and what happened. Hopefully we get the best version of Christian Kirk here in Houston, a healthy version here in Houston. Not looking for him to be the 2021 version, Sarge. Just can he come in and get 50 catches for this offense? And I think that's a win.
Yeah, I do too, John. And before we dive into this next segment, let me start off because you said job's not done. So when you say job's not done, and with the move that the Houston Texans made by acquiring Christian Kirk through trade, does that mean John Mechie's on the trading block?
Trading block, I'm not sure. I mean, I think Mechie right now, I can look up his numbers really quick, but I think John Mechie
he plays the slot, right?
He does play the slot. Let's see how much Mechie is under contract for right now for the 2025 year. His 2025 cap hit $2.5 million. Last year for the Houston Texans, John Mechie was featured in the slot quite a bit. Let's take a look here. But to answer your question before I get to the number, no, I don't think he's a trade bait right now. I don't think he's a trade guy. I think for Houston Texans, it's very important to say, hey, listen, get him in camp, let him compete, right?
Yeah.
Also considering what I think would be great for Nick Caserio this year, and John Mechie played 254 snaps inside, 202 outside. What I think would be great for the Houston Texans this year from a general manager standpoint, and this is why I say job's not done, just learn from your past mistakes, right? I thought that last year you traded for Stephon Diggs, right? You gave up a second-round pick. You voided out those last couple of years, and that left you in the pickle a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you also just kind of left it at that, right? A lot of us felt like Houston should have still drafted a receiver in last year's draft, given the case of we didn't know much about Mitchell at that point. He was still getting his legs under him. We didn't know much about Xavier Hutchinson at that point. He was still trying to figure out the NFL. That really only left Houston with Nico, Tank Dell, and Stephon Diggs. And Tank Dell was coming off an injury and everything that had happened the year prior. So for the Houston Texans, I think it's smart to, especially if these guys are on very inexpensive contracts, at the very least, let them get to training camp.
Yeah.
Let them get to training camp. John Mechie may ascend this year. He may take another step in his game. Guys, I know y'all kill us a lot, but we know what we've seen in training camp.
I like John Mechie, bro. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm a John Mechie fan, John. And I mean, I've said that since day one. I mean, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that young man had to go through what he went through medically when he first got into the NFL. And you know, there's not another person that I feel like could bounce back, especially, you know, watch it. John, and if you look at it, man, it's his college career was cut short because he got hurt in the SEC championship game. And that kind of probably knocked him down, you know, a little bit as far as being drafted earlier than what the Houston Texans got him at. And then he, you know, comes in his rookie year. He has to deal with the medical issue. Second year, he has to come back, try to bounce back from that, which isn't easy. But I want to say this, John. If I am the Carolina Panthers, I'm asking, hey, Nick, what are you thinking about, you know, as far as John Mechie? What are you going to do with John Mechie? Because, you know, I would love to pair him and Bryce Young back together. I would love to, you know, to get Bryce some familiarity, especially the way that Bryce played after the mention and the way that he came on. And so, you know, if I'm Nick Caserio, I'm not hanging up the phone if the Carolina Panthers come calling about John Mechie. I'm going to see, you know, just listen to see what I can get, but I'm not going to, especially with the way as light as that wide receiver room is, and as far as they don't have any depth. But I mean, if I'm looking to draft multiple wide receivers in this year's draft, I may, you know, I would take the call. But you know, like I said, I'm a firm believer in John Mechie, man. I want to see him do good, and if that's not with Houston, hey, Carolina would be an ideal place for him to go.
I know another team that could use him. I'll just say that. I've been watching him for a long time.
Oh my
God.
I
mean, the question is, okay, just to the John Mechie point, how much is he worth to you? Is he worth more gone, or is he worth more on his roster? Is he worth more here as a security blanket, just in case? Because Houston got bit a few times and they didn't have nobody else to step up just in case. Or is he worth more as a future pick, as a future late round pick that maybe you use to flip again? So I think that would be like the thought process for me. Now, when I look at the job not being done, Christian Kirk is great. Nico Collins restructured his contract, gave Houston some wiggle room to make that type of move. Job's not done. Okay, other players, we need to start seeing some of these contracts restructured. We need to start seeing maybe the Houston Texans moving on for some guys, which could still save them some money. But I still would see, hey, Devontae, what's the asking price? Realistically, what is your 2025 asking price? What does 2026 look like for you? And do you think there's a 2027 left in the tank? If so, I would really look at the idea of, guys, we can have Nico, Devontae, and Kirk underneath. And we can still go young at some point in the draft. How are we able to maneuver the money around enough to be able to afford this? Because now I think the Houston Texans know what it takes to beat some of these top 10s. They had a successful year last year, didn't have the year that they wanted, but all fell down to what, Sarge, for back-to-back years? You just said it on yesterday's show.
They didn't have enough wide receiver depth.
It was just Nico out there.
Yeah, it was just Nico out there. So,
and Devontae gives you – he's a guy that has a lot of experience in the playoffs.
Real quickly, John. So, and I hear what you're saying. Don't get me wrong. I hear what you're saying. Like I said, I'm a Devontae Adams fan as well. But I guess my pushback would be this, is Are you? How many years? You say you want to give him 2 years, right? You want to give him 2
deal.
years.
2 years. He's 31 now. 2-year deal.
I don't think so. I mean, if we keeping it 100 right here on the Locked On Texas podcast, which we always do, I don't think Devontae Adams would take the 2-year deal here. I think that he would only want 1 year, because on the flip side, as much as we love Devontae Adams, like John, he still has to prove that he has the heart to play football. He wanted out of Oakland. I mean, not Oakland. He wanted out of Las Vegas.
We all wanted him out too. It was just abysmal.
Okay, so he wanted out of Las Vegas, and then he wanted to make sure that he was reunited with Aaron Rodgers, and then he gets to New York, and then they don't produce up there together. And so if I'm a general manager, I'm like, hey, if you come to my team, I'll give you a 1-year prove it deal, like 1 year that you are still like that you've rededicated your life to football, because the last 2 stops that I've seen, I know your talent. I know your talent. But I also know that, sometimes when you don't get your way, how you
got
act.
a little quit in you.
I've seen the way that you've acted. And so, if I'm the Houston Texans, if I'm Nick Caserio, I'm like, hey, look, man. Well, okay, so let me see what the 2-year asking price is. Okay, now let me see what the 1-year asking price is. And then maybe if you can show me that you're rededicated to playing football, if you can show me that you can stay healthy for a year, then we may have the money to be able to give you a contract. But if not, then go somewhere and find, and this is no knock on Devontae Adams. I don't want this to come off in negative, but if not, hey man, go and find yourself a place where you can get a bag. Go play in Tampa Bay. Go replace Chris Godwin out there, because he's a free agent. I'm just saying, putting him and Mike Evans on the same team, or you look at what we just talked about earlier. Carolina Panthers could use Devontae Adams. Hell, if you really want to be honest, if you get a Devontae Adams to pair up with the Indianapolis Colts, you may see a different Anthony Richardson. So all I'm saying is, if you're going to bring him to Houston, I need to know that you're dedicated to playing football, and when the going gets rough, you're still going to be in it to play football.
No, I get you. Thank you guys for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. I just want to say that I 100% agree. And again, what I mentioned for Nick, this offseason is all about learning from your past mistakes. No more 1-year deals, because it throws off your continuity, and it puts you in a position every year to where you got to go find another guy. And I think you're constantly restructuring contracts to make it work.
So what are you going to do?
I would say if it's only a 1-year deal, then no. If you can get him for a 2-year deal to extend that window, then yes.
Thank you. If he doesn't produce, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I know we got
we
can bring this back. Weekend edition.
We can bring it back. Thank y'all for watching today's show. We really appreciate it. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment to the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast, and follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12.
You can follow me at Big Star Sports with the Z at the end on the app formerly known as Twitter. Because if you don't, pull up to that bumper.
Bulls on parades. Battle Red Nation. Y'all enjoy y'all weekend. Peace.